more about that game.
Thank you, Freak. I mean, that game was incredible. Back and forth, exciting, to say the least. Yeah. It's almost hard to decide where to begin.
At the end.
At the end. We'll begin at the end, work towards the beginning.
Sure. I would say it was actually a disappointing ending to a really good game. Because the way that ended with the teleporting in and the missed equalizer, the inexplicable 2 inhibitor for 1 trade by Gravity against TSM, it didn't feel like that was an earned victory, even though the game itself was really good up until that point.
Yeah, so now if we look to how we got there, I am going to rewind us all the way back to the beginning. I want to look at the mid lane matchup because we had that video from Keen where he said a lot of this game is going to ride on the mid lane matchup and their ability to keep track of Santorin and keep him safe in the mid lane. Yeah. Well, what happened?
There's a lane swap, and also that puts Lustboy on the top side of the map, and he kept roaming down, and they were making moves towards the mid lane that was very synergized. A lot of synergy there that was shown between TSM's mid lane and their jungle, and they were also doing it before Move had Sightstone. So he wasn't able to put up all the vision that he wanted around the lane to protect Keen.
Yeah, did not like the Xin Zhao pick by Move. Because he's had a very vision-centric style his entire time in the LCS. And as Kobe mentioned in the pick and ban phase, that is not something that Xin Zhao excels at. Also, to speak to the early game, while TSM was building that advantage for Bjergsen in the mid lane, they were putting Wild Turtle in a little bit of a hole. Altec as Tristana will probably lose the 2v2 if you match that with Kalista Annie, but they gave Trista 1v1 lane against Gnar, and they gave Wild Turtle what turned out to be a 2v2 lane against, what was it, Rumble Thresh, and then they swapped back when he was weaker, so he just kept going farther and farther down that pit of despair against Tristana, and it was just, he fell super far behind.
Yeah, right, we saw the lane swap back finally, but in that 2v2 now, Tristana comes ahead with a kill, and then throughout the rest of the game, relegate her to the side lanes, so she ended up with 150 CS over a Kalista near the late game.
The thing I want to touch on with the Xin Zhao pick is that he's played Jarvan before. We saw it from him. It'll shred armor just like him. It'll set people up in an equalizer hole. I'm really curious as to why that pick took priority, because it gives him the style of going in for vision, coming out for vision with the flag and drag. Like, Xin Zhao can't do that. So it really just kind of mind-boggling. I'd love to hear what Move has to say about that.
Yeah, we've seen it twice now this weekend, and to... like wishy-washy success. I mean, I don't really have a word for it. It's just been meh. I'm unimpressed by the Xin Zhao picks so far. I'm waiting to figure out why exactly people are prioritizing him.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Because, yes, Jarvan could do a lot of those jobs, potentially better than him, maybe early sustained. That's not what this game necessarily was about.
Exactly.
There was so many crazy fights within the mid-game, and I actually have to credit Gravity a lot for the way they were able to claw back from having an, 0-8 Urgot at one point, and consistently trying to cycle out the carries from Team Solo Mid.
Well, what I really liked is, even though Keen is behind like 4,000 gold at 40 minutes, Hauntzer's up 3,000, Altec's up 3,000, Hauntzer's up 1,500, and then when they're grouping up, they're damage dealers. They have more damage dealers who are further ahead, and they were just soloing out Bjergsen. Even though Keen was like 0-8, he's still suppressing Bjergsen, stopping him from taking any actions before he got the items that he needed to get out of it. So I thought that was really good by Gravity to kind of play around where their gold was.
It's another one of those games where you look at the losing team in Gravity and you say they shouldn't feel awful about this game because they did play very well through the mid-game. As Bjergsen said, we were on the losing end of every team fight, struggling to figure out how to keep control of this game that we're supposedly winning right now. And so, when I look at Bunny Fufu and the shot callers and the development of this team, I do have to say that I would walk away from this game with a smile on my face. I mean, a disappointed smile, I guess. Yeah,
it's actually 2 games in a row this week that TSM has had a losing trend that is then reversed at the very last moment, and then they end up winning the game. So a worrying week for Team Solomid because the expectation is that they win every game. And yes, we do say that Team Liquid and Gravity can walk away with their held tie, but at the end of the day, they lost.
And Team Solo Mid, basically this week, they went 2-0, but 2 different equalizers placed slightly different ways. It would have been an 0-2 week for them.
Those minor mechanical errors, man, can bite you sometimes. Well, up next on the Rift, we've got Counter Logic Gaming to defend their first place position when they take on Cloud9. Don't go anywhere.